Welcome to Points of View, a discussion of issues regarding persons with disabilities, moderated by Doug Uziak.
Today's panelists are Megan Ostrowski, Western Region Client Assistance Program Coordinator; Todd Varwerk, Director of Public Policy, Western New York Independent Living Incorporated; and Justin Shiner, recipient of CAP Services.
Welcome. Today we're going to be speaking and talking about the vocational rehabilitation programs and services for people with disabilities in New York State. And just a small little footnote, what we used to call the vocational educational services for individuals with disabilities, otherwise known as VESID, has undergone a new name change and currently is called Access-VR. And to tell you the truth, I don't remember what Access. Megan, what does ACCESS stand for?
It stands for Adult Career and Continuing Educational Services - Vocational Rehabilitation.
That's great. Now that we've established you as the expert, give us an overview of what is vocational rehabilitation.
Vocational rehabilitation is services for individuals that have disabilities and that are looking to go back to employment, either obtain, maintain, or be trained for a specific job.
Now, is this something unique to New York State?
No, the title of Access is used in New York State, but all 50 states have some type of vocational rehabilitation program.
So it must be what, regulated by the federal government in some form?
There are regulations from the federal government, and it's administered by the state government.
So how does one get linked up to these types of services, Todd?
Well, there are many ways you can be linked up to services. One, you can individually request them. You can find out where your local VR office is and you can go there. You could be connected through your involvement in special education in high school as part of a transition plan in moving towards adulthood. You can be linked to VR by a discharge plan from a local hospital or by a recommendation of a union representative. If, for example, you're on workers' comp and you've been injured and you need training in order to be able to get back to the workforce. There are many doorways to get into vocational rehabilitation.
Now, is workers' comp part of the vocational rehab process?
No, that's a separate thing.
Okay.
VR is about getting you back to work. Workers' compensation is about paying for the medical expenses because you got injured while working.
So an individual could actually participate in both?
Yes, because the goal in VR is to get you back to working.
So the fact that there's some level of federal involvement, does this create uniformity across the country as what these services and programs are?
When you're talking about nationally, I don't think we have uniformity in pretty much anything. VR on a state level is mandated by a plan where they identify how much money they're going to get and what they're going to do with the money they get. Each state writes their own plan and handles VR services consistent with that plan.
Okay, and Megan, New York State is somewhat unique, the fact that there's more than one vocational rehab program in the state?
Well, I guess my best answer for that is in New York State, these services are divided up by regions. So there are regional offices for the vocational rehabilitation services, but then there is also a division because anybody who has a disability other than legal blindness would get services through Access VR, the agency that we've been talking about. Anybody who is legally blind would actually receive their services through the Commission for the Blind and Visually Handicapped, and not every state separates their services into those two agencies.
But within New York State, the Commission for the Blind does pretty much the same thing that Access does?
Yes, they do. They just serve specifically the population of people who are legally blind.
Now, what is the value of having this rehabilitation program in the state? Why the public expense to get involved and to put forth dollars towards people with disabilities?
We lose a tremendous labor pool, Doug, if we let talent that exists lie fallow without training them in order to be able to enter the workforce. Also, we know that people who work are healthier. They become taxpayers. We get them off of public benefit programs. We reduce their reliance on medical programs. And it also helps the economy. Let's not forget that. So,
Well, I'm not sure how you can say it's helping the economy. I mean, it's a known fact that the unemployment rate for persons with disabilities is tremendously high. And Megan, you know, if we're talking about getting people with disabilities to work, and Todd says there's this huge, you know, dearth of talent or talent, the pool that's out there that's not being utilized. I mean, what's going on here?
Vocational rehabilitation is a very complex system, but if it worked the way it should, every individual with disabilities would be matched with services and supports to the full extent of their capability, and they would be able to return to employment to the greatest extent that they were medically able to work.
Yeah, but there is a cost to the taxpayer in order for these individuals, and I'm assuming that we're not just talking about teaching somebody how to dig a ditch, milk a cow, you know, cut hay. We're talking about some pretty extensive skill sets here at times, aren't we?
Well, there's a real range of services. They actually have a rapid placement job employment where someone usually gets a job placement within 90 days. There are people who need a bit more intensive services that would receive services for possibly an area of 6 months. There are training programs that last for a year. There are some people who get support for college education. Doug, those people could get services for a few years, and that would be on the higher end of the cost services that people receive. When they're done with that program, though, if they're going out into the community and getting employed at a level appropriate with their degree, which is part of what vocational rehabilitation does, that person has no further need for public-based assistance.
So what's the return on the investment here? You know, Todd, you look like a savvy businessman. I mean, you know, we're putting all this money into somebody's education. What do we see in return?
well, you know, we can, you know, let's say over a period of 4 years, we invest $20,000 in services and programs for an individual. But that person graduates college or graduates a tech school and goes out and gets a job that makes 27 grand a year. Rather than being on SSI or SSD, which could be 12 grand a year just for them to sit at home, they're actually making 27, paying taxes into the system and not spending that 12 grand, which is the investment. You spend 20 grand now, so that over the next 4 years, that person might be making, you know, 150 grand total, and we haven't spent on that person 50 or 60.
And on that note, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to examine that person in Justin. So we'll see you in about 60 seconds.
Today, people with disabilities are participating fully in the social and economic life of New York State. In large measure, this is true because of the work of an independent living center in your community. The New York State Independent Living Council is dedicated to promoting the independent living philosophy and to facilitating access to independent living services. For more information on the council or about your nearest independent living center, call toll-free 1-888-469-7452.
Are you looking for new ideas to help you sell? Need a presentation that must compel? Have a message you wish to dispel? Or an important story you need to tell? Are you exploring new ways to communicate, to motivate, to educate, or demonstrate? Or are you searching for creative concepts to help you entertain, promote your brand name, to effectively train, or launch a new web domain name? Then focus on Creative Concept Studios and see the possibilities.
Welcome back. We're talking about vocational rehabilitation and the value and the impact of such retraining for individuals that do incur a disability or that have a disability. I guess if you have a disability in your system, it's called habilitation as opposed to rehabilitation, but that's a technicality for anybody who's sitting there with a pencil. But Justin, you're a victim of the system.
Yes.
You've gone through the system. Why don't you give us quickly your particular story on what you went through, what you met with, and how it all ended up?
Yeah, so, I came to CAP because I needed assistance.
CAP being what?
Client Assistance Program. I needed assistance receiving technology to help compensate for my disability, which is learning disability. It's dyslexia. And I wanted to go to school, and because of this technology and receiving this technology, I was able to graduate from the University at Buffalo with BS in Biological Sciences. I was able to maintain a 3.9 GPA and now apply to med school, and it was made possible with this technology and made possible because of the client assistance program, helping me acquire it.
Okay, so since you've allowed us to dissect your particular life here in front of everybody, 5 people watching us today.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. You did identify yourself with a learning disability.
Yeah.
How did that particular learning disability manifest itself?
Well, reading and writing. So I have a great difficulty with reading, writing, spelling. And the assistive technology that I use helps me to do that.
Okay, so how did you accomplish reading?
Reading, well, through it's a program called Kurzweil. I use on my computer. It I just scan my textbooks into the computer, and this program will read my textbooks to me. So I'm able to read my textbooks.
All right, did this program turn around and actually write for you too?
Yes, Dragon. That allowed me its voice recognition software. So what I say, it types.
So how are you able to correct your own mistakes if you can't read it?
Well, just commands. Well, first of all, these programs work together, so I'm able to. It will read whatever I type as well.
Is your particular disability so severe that you are totally unable to read and write?
Not at any level that you could pass college with.
Yeah.
So
And your undergrad degree is in what?
Biological sciences.
I wouldn't even attempt to say that, let alone take it.
Yeah.
So, and you're looking forward to being a doctor?
Yeah.
Now, no pun here intended, but what person would want to deal with a doctor who can't read the prescription they're writing?
Well, I think that
We expect doctors to be able to write prescriptions other people can read? Hold on, wait.
I think
Do we
that's
miss a
probably
meeting?
Put that on the side. Okay, but the point here is, you have this disability. Obviously, I'm assuming that being a doctor and maintaining up to speed, like all good doctors do, with the latest journal articles about the latest medical stuff. I mean, how are the plans on keeping up with something like that?
Well, the plan is to utilize the technology that I have that's gotten me this far. I mean, that has allowed me to be successful in college, and to, if it's just reading a prescription, I can get by. But it's the technology that allows me to stay current in medicine that I'll be using that. And as a doctor, intakes with patients, that's simply picking words from a computer screen. It's not writing anymore. It's not
So
spelling
what you're
anymore.
saying pretty much is the technology can bypass that particular barrier.
Justin,
And it has. Yeah.
because we're highlighting something here that's important. We've been talking about VR up to this point, and you mentioned client assistance program. So why did you need client assistance program?
Well,
Don't take over my show, Todd. That was the question I was going to ask.
Oh, okay,
So,
then.
Justin,
Yes.
why did you need the client assistance program?
to receive the technology that was necessary for me to graduate from college.
You were denied that technology.
Yes, I was.
Now, to me, seriously, Justin, you seem very bright, very much on top of it.
Thank you.
Why would the professionals, especially if we look backwards and we see that you graduated with almost a 4.0 average, and I'm assuming that's out of 4, why would the professionals say no to you?
I didn't understand it, and that's why I came to the client assistance program, for them to advocate for me to fight on my behalf for this technology. Because if
Okay.
it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have been able to. I tried speaking with them myself, and it got me nowhere.
Okay, Megan, what was the barrier from the state's perspective as to why Justin shouldn't get the support?
Well, as the person who advocated for him, there was a lot of debate within the Buffalo office as to whether Justin would be successful to the extent that he is now. One of the first things that we did was provide them with ample documentation of the success that he had had up until that point. We also advocated...
Wait. Justin had to prove his success
Yes.
before he attempted to do that? Is this a standard practice?
It actually has become a standard practice, Doug, because one of the reasons why the Client Assistance Program is so important is that just like all other state departments, Access VR is being asked to serve more people with less money. So they're not in a position where they can approve taking risks for people. The best phrase that I ever heard a senior voc rehab counselor use is, we're only going to take proven gambles. What in the world is a proven gamble?
Well, that would be my question. How many number one draft choices end up on the bench for the first 5 years? Okay, go ahead, Megan.
So whether or not Justin could succeed was certainly part of what they were looking at. Another part of their question was whether or not he had the ability to benefit from the assistive technology. I advocated for him to have an evaluation. The evaluation showed, Doug, that he would be able to perform at a much higher level of efficacy and be able to continue with his classes.
But if you went out and got this evaluation, why would it be a problem for the system to have done that? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to sit here and talk to Justin and realize he's got something on the ball.
The system as it is now is unfortunately not working perfectly, and if the system was working correctly, they should have had him in for that evaluation without any further advocacy needed. However, the system is not flexible enough to deal with the individual needs of every person that they serve, and that's the reason that advocacy came into play in order to get Justin that evaluation.
Okay, well said, Megan, and when we return after this 60-second break, we will talk about the client assistance programs and the services that it offers to individuals who come to it. So we'll see you in a minute.
Today, people with disabilities are participating fully in the social and economic life of New York State. In large measure, this is true because of the work of an independent living center in your community. The New York State Independent Living Council is dedicated to promoting the independent living philosophy and to facilitating access to independent living services. For more information on the council or about your nearest independent living center, call toll-free 1-888-469-7452.
Are you looking for new ideas to help you sell? Need a presentation that must compel? Have a message you wish to dispel? Or an important story you need to tell? Are you exploring new ways to communicate, to motivate, to educate, or demonstrate? Or are you searching for creative concepts to help you entertain, promote your brand name, to effectively train, or launch a new web domain name? Then focus on Creative Concept Studios and see the possibilities.
Welcome back. We've been talking about vocational rehabilitation services and Justin's experience through that, and the fact that he needed to access something called the Client Assistance Program. Megan, as the coordinator of the Client Assistance Program, no, maybe I'll go to Todd. Let's start with Todd. Todd, why would somebody need something like the Client Assistance Program?
Well, before the break, Megan talked about the inflexibility of the system, and I want to add something to that, which is why Client Assistance Program is important. Access VR, like all the other voc rehab programs in the country, are overreactive to the numbers that it gets about their own success stories or sometimes lack of them. If we look at the last stats that were available, we talk about VESID might be sponsoring a number of students for college, and 2/3 of them don't make it. From them, we look at that as a shame because 2/3 of the disabled kids don't make college. Access VR looks at it as, we've wasted all of this money. So we've developed this whole thing where rehab counselors don't counsel anymore. They become gatekeepers. They become gatekeepers to be able to only place money on the sure things. Client Assistance Program is there to make them prove that something isn't a sure thing, to give the consumer the fair chance to get the services that the federal law says they're entitled to.
So, Megan, as a client assistance program, how does the CAP program fit into the VOC rehab stream of services?
The Client Assistance Program offers support and advocacy for individuals receiving vocational rehabilitation services. Any confusion, any lack of communication, any disagreement on a particular goal, any service that the individual has requested that is needed for their vocational goal and may have been denied is something that CAP can help them resolve. I do a lot of mediation, a lot of negotiation, a lot of facilitating of communication, because counselors who are dealing with hundreds of people don't have the opportunity to get to know individuals on such a basis that they are able to have the flexibility to provide those individualized services.
So, Justin, I'm just curious, within the CAP program, did you feel that you were picking the direction of which this advocacy effort for you was going?
Yeah, I mean, working with Megan, I was given what I was asking for, what I was expecting and hoping for.
Were you part of the planning, part of presenting your own case, or was it all done for you?
Majority of it was done for me because it was, I was in territory. I wasn't, I didn't know.
Mm-hmm. Were you kept up to speed to what was going on, though?
Absolutely, yeah.
You felt you had a say in the direction you were going?
Absolutely, yeah. I was, Megan came to the meetings with me with Access, and I was aware of everything that was going on.
So you were there and present.
Yeah.
You just weren't the guy out in front advocating.
No.
Yeah, because we find, Doug, that a lot of people in the voc rehab system are intimidated in and of themselves by standing up to counselors.
Yeah, well, that's sort of where I was going, Justin. I'd be curious to know, was contacting and requesting assistance from CAP in any way a difficult thing for you to do?
No, not at all. That's actually where everything started falling into place.
How did you actually contact the CAP office?
I was given, I was referred to them through a member of Access, and because I was denied services.
So they automatically said, hey, go to this troublemaker and they'll help you out.
Exactly.
Really?
Yeah.
Although I don't know about being described as a troublemaker, I would definitely say that I facilitated the meetings between Justin and either the vocational rehabilitation counselor that he was working with or with the management at Access, because we did have at least one meeting with some of the higher level management. But really the client assistance program facilitates those meetings in order to make sure the person does have the opportunity to have their voice heard.
So how far will CAP go with somebody? Is it just the point you said you negotiated, facilitated, compromised, and hit them over the head? But how far will you actually take the case?
The Client Assistance Program can work with an individual at any point in their case. It can be at the application, eligibility decision stage. It can be at the development of a plan for services. It can even be if the negotiation or the mediation fails, we can represent people at administrative reviews or even at fair hearings.
Fair hearings.
If a person was to be denied through negotiation and mediation, the next step would be for them to request an administrative review. If the administrative review did not have a result that was favorable to the individual, they would be entitled to request a fair hearing, and that would take place before an impartial fair hearing officer, and the case would be reviewed. It's very similar to a courtroom setting, but it's not as formalized.
And you represent a person at the fair hearing?
Yes.
Are you the only individual within the client assistance program that a person would work with?
No, actually, particularly for people who got to the point of needing to have a hearing, there is a legal support for CAP in this region, and it's handled by Neighborhood Legal Services. That attorney would work with me on the case and advise me, and more than likely be a part of the hearing as well.
There's a legal piece for client assistance program in all the areas where the program has service.
And what are you seeing as a success rate, Megan, after all these efforts of working with individuals? Are you actually, is Justin unusual that he got the system to overturn and he walked out with his bachelor's degree? Or, what are you actually saying out there?
Justin is a great example of success to almost the higher level of success that could be perceived, because he did achieve everything that he set out to do. As an overall successful achievement rate, what I'm seeing is probably about 85% of people achieving their vocational goals, receiving the services that they needed to support that, and actually obtaining employment.
Actually obtaining, they're coming out at the other end, they're finding jobs to pay back that dollar and cent that Todd was talking about earlier?
Absolutely.
So Todd, that you're saying that the small amount of money that may be poured into the client assistance program is giving us our investment here?
Absolutely. I mean, personally, I'd like to be able to say the client assistance program isn't needed. I want to be able to go back and thump the occasional voc rehab counselor, because if they're failing to look at possible success 85% of the time, that's a problem. However, the client assistance program backstops that and catches those folks and makes sure that valuable talent isn't lost. And I think that the investment they make in that program is well worth it.
So Justin, I'll let you have the last word. What do you want to say to anybody that's sitting in your boat and
well,
may be listening to what's going on here?
Just, well, I'm grateful for what CAP has done for me, and basically allowed me to, graduate from college and to be able to, at this point, to apply to medical school, and just knowing that that wouldn't have happened, I would have.
Okay. So get out there and try it.
Yeah.
I think he was asking if you were going to recommend it to others.
Anyway,
Of course.
at that note, we got to end the show anyway, and of course he's going to recommend it. We slipped him $20. But on that note, if you're in the vocational rehabilitation system and things aren't quite going the way you think they should go, call the Client Assistance Program. They'll give you a straight answer. So thanks for watching. We'll see you at the next show.
Points of View is presented by the New York State Independent Living Council, Incorporated, in cooperation with the Catskills Center for Independence, Fingerlakes Independence Center, Independent Living of Niagara County, and Western New York Independent Living. For the location of the Independent Living Center in your area, call toll-free 1-888-469-7452.